Why you should practice speaking. Eleanor always dreamed of conversing fluently in English, especially with that charming British accent. Her textbooks were filled with notes, but actual speaking felt like an insurmountable mountain. She knew the grammar, understood complex sentences, yet her tongue often tied itself in knots whenever she attempted to utter a single coherent phrase. The desire was immense. This persistent shyness was her biggest hurdle. She pictured herself speaking confidently, engaging in lively discussions, but the reality was often a quiet nod or a mumbled yes. The words simply wouldn't form when under pressure, leading to immense frustration. This internal struggle became a daily battle. She realized deep down that merely absorbing information wasn't enough. True fluency, she deduced, emerged from active participation, from the brave act of producing language oneself. It was not enough to understand. One simply had to speak, to articulate, to venture forth into the spoken realm. For Eleanor, the question why you should practice speaking resonated profoundly. It wasn't just about passing an exam or understanding a film. It was about unlocking a new world of communication, fostering genuine connections, and experiencing diverse cultures firsthand. It was about personal growth. Speaking transforms passive knowledge into active command. Every word spoken, every sentence constructed aloud, reinforces vocabulary and grammar in a way reading never could alone. It builds muscle memory for the tongue and brain, making the process of verbal expression increasingly natural and effortless over time. Confidence, Eleanor discovered, is a direct byproduct of consistent speaking practice. Each successful interaction, however small, chipped away at her self-doubt, building a foundation of belief in her own abilities. The more she spoke, the less frightening it became, slowly but surely. There's an undeniable magic in the best way to learn English. It isn't a single secret method, but rather a blend of continuous practical application. Learning, she concluded, is an active sport, not a spectator event. Immersion, even artificial immersion, played a crucial role, she realized. She understood that learning English effectively required a multifaceted approach. Reading, listening, writing, and crucially speaking all intertwined. Neglecting one aspect would inevitably hinder progress in others. A truly holistic strategy was required for comprehensive linguistic development. Eleanor focused specifically on British English, captivated by its distinct charm. She admired the polite nuances, the subtle humor, and the precise articulation. Her goal wasn't just to speak English, but to speak it with that particular elegance and authenticity, a proper British sound. This specific aspiration guided her listening and mimicry exercises. She listened intently to BBC programs, distinguishing regional accents and adopting common phrases. Her aim was to internalize the rhythm and intonation patterns unique to British speech, making her delivery sound more natural and less forced. She knew that how to speak with people was the ultimate goal, yet also the most intimidating. The thought of engaging in real-time conversations with native speakers filled her with a mixture of excitement and utter dread. Where to begin this daunting task? Overcoming the initial awkwardness was paramount. Eleanor learned that most people are patient and encouraging, especially when encountering someone genuinely trying to learn. The fear of making a mistake, she gradually understood, was far worse than the mistake itself. She started her journey with Start Talking at Home, a safe and private sanctuary. Her bedroom became her first English-speaking laboratory. Here, She could experiment freely without the pressure of an audience, building foundational habits and gaining initial confidence. Daily routines became opportunities for practice. Eleanor would narrate her morning rituals aloud. "I'm making a cup of tea," or "I need to brush my teeth now." This simple self-talk familiarized her brain with forming everyday English sentences. Speaking into a mirror proved incredibly helpful. She would hold imaginary conversations, watching her mouth movements and facial expressions. It felt a bit silly at first, but it allowed her to observe her own delivery and make conscious adjustments to her pronunciation. Recording her voice was a game changer. Playing back her monologues, she could identify pronunciation errors, awkward phrasing, and areas where her fluency faltered. This objective feedback allowed for targeted improvement, refining her speech with precision. She also tried role-playing different scenarios, imagining she was ordering coffee or asking for directions. This prepared her for real-life interactions, preempting potential conversational challenges and building a repertoire of useful phrases. Eleanor then moved to how to talk to people in pairs. This felt like the next logical step after solo practice. Finding a language exchange partner was crucial for receiving real-time feedback and engaging in dynamic conversations. Online platforms connected her with fellow learners and native speakers from around the world, many keen on learning her language in return. This reciprocity created a supportive and mutually beneficial learning environment, reducing the pressure significantly. Their conversations started slowly, often with prepared topics. They discussed hobbies, favorite books, and travel plans. Gradually, the discussions became more spontaneous and natural, flowing freely as their comfort levels grew considerably. Role-playing specific situations with her partner proved invaluable. One day they would be customer and shop assistant, the next a tourist and a local. This simulated real-world interaction, building practical vocabulary and conversational strategies effectively. She also learned the art of active listening during these pair sessions. Paying close attention to her partner's responses allowed her to formulate more relevant follow-up questions, keeping the conversation flowing smoothly and naturally. A pivotal realization for Eleanor was how to think and speak directly in English. Previously, she'd mentally translate everything from her native tongue, a slow and cumbersome process that hindered natural conversation flow. She started by consciously forcing herself to form thoughts directly in English. When she wanted a cup of tea, she wouldn't think "que estiorum," then translate, but immediately, "I want a cup of tea." This mental shift was challenging initially. This internal monologue became a constant companion. She narrated her day in her head, planned her tasks, and even argued with herself, all in English. It was like having a continuous mental English conversation, strengthening her neural pathways. The benefits were immediate. Her response time in real conversations drastically reduced. She no longer paused awkwardly, searching for translations. Words and phrases began to flow much more naturally, becoming second nature surprisingly quickly. This continuous how to practice English became a lifestyle, not just a study routine. It wasn't about cramming. It was about integrating English into every fabric of her daily existence, making it an organic part of her life. She set small, achievable goals. Perhaps 5 minutes of self-talk in the morning, a 20-minute conversation with her partner, and an hour of listening to a British podcast. Consistency was her golden rule above all else. Eleanor also maintained a vocabulary notebook, jotting down new words and phrases she encountered during her speaking and listening sessions. She made a conscious effort to incorporate these new elements into her next conversations. She embraced mistakes as learning opportunities. Each slip-up, she reasoned, was a chance to understand where her knowledge gaps lay, allowing her to refine her understanding and improve for the next attempt. Fear vanished. Listen and practice was a cornerstone of her strategy. She understood that effective speaking required keen listening. Her ears became finely tuned instruments, picking up on nuances she had previously missed entirely. British podcasts on various topics, history, comedy, news, became her daily soundtrack. She didn't just passively listen. She actively tried to understand every word, pausing to look up unfamiliar vocabulary and phrases. Watching British television shows and films without subtitles, or with English subtitles only, proved immensely beneficial. She paid close attention to the intonation, rhythm, and natural speed of native speakers, trying to replicate them. Mimicking dialogues from her favorite shows became a fun and effective exercise. She would repeat lines exactly as she heard them, focusing on the accent, the stress, and the emotional delivery, honing her pronunciation keenly. She also joined online communities where people discussed British culture. This exposed her to authentic, informal language and slang, broadening her understanding of contemporary usage beyond textbook examples. A crucial element of her learning journey was understanding why you must read English. Reading vastly expanded her passive vocabulary, providing a deep well of words and expressions to draw upon during conversations. She started with graded readers, then moved on to young adult fiction, eventually tackling more complex British novels and newspapers. This progressive approach built her reading stamina and exposed her to diverse writing styles. Reading familiarized her with complex grammatical structures and context. Seeing how sentences were naturally formed, how clauses connected, and how different tenses were used, reinforced her theoretical knowledge significantly. It also exposed her to idiomatic expressions and colloquialisms that are frequently used by native speakers, but rarely taught explicitly in textbooks. These nuances made her own spoken English sound far more authentic. Reading English news articles kept her informed about current events, providing natural conversation fodder for her language exchange sessions. She could discuss topics confidently, armed with relevant vocabulary and facts. Eleanor's consistency was key. She didn't aim for perfection overnight, but for persistent, daily engagement. Even on busy days, she ensured she dedicated at least a short period to some form of English practice, no matter how brief. Her environment slowly transformed into an English-speaking one. Labels in her kitchen were changed to English, sticky notes with new vocabulary appeared on her mirror, and her phone's language setting switched to English. She embraced the concept of language showers, short bursts of English exposure throughout the day. A quick YouTube video, a song, or a few minutes reading an article, all contributed to continuous immersion. This multi-pronged strategy, combining speaking, listening, reading, and thinking, began to yield remarkable results. Eleanor's confidence soared, and her fluency became visibly smoother, much to her delight and surprise. She started participating in local English conversation groups, moving beyond her online peers. The variety of accents and speaking styles initially challenged her, but she adapted quickly, thriving in the dynamic environment. Her ability to respond spontaneously improved dramatically. She no longer had to painstakingly construct sentences in her head. Words often just flowed out, sometimes surprising even herself with their naturalness. The joy of finally expressing herself fully in English was immense. She could share her opinions, tell stories, and engage in witty banter, truly connecting with people from a new cultural perspective. Her British accent, once a distant dream, became a natural part of her speech. While not flawless, it was distinct and consistent, a testament to her dedicated listening and mimicry practices over months. Eleanor realized that learning a language is a continuous journey, not a destination. There are always new words to learn, new nuances to grasp, and new ways to express oneself, endlessly enriching the experience. She became an ardent advocate for proactive language practice, often sharing her story and tips with others struggling to find their voice. Her transformation served as inspiration for many aspiring English speakers. Her initial fear of embarrassment had completely dissipated, replaced by a genuine enthusiasm for communication. She understood that making mistakes was an integral, indeed a necessary, part of the learning process. The world, once partially closed off by a language barrier, now felt vast and accessible. Travel became richer, international friendships blossomed, and professional opportunities expanded significantly. Eleanor's journey underscored a simple truth. Speaking is the muscle of language. It must be exercised regularly, challenged consistently, and built up patiently over time to achieve true strength and fluidity. Every single day brought a tiny improvement, a subtle shift towards greater fluency and confidence. These small, consistent efforts compounded, leading to the remarkable transformation she had only dreamed of. So, if you're yearning to truly master English, remember Eleanor's journey. Embrace the practice, speak at home, find a partner, listen keenly, read widely, and most importantly, start talking. Your English voice awaits.